Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a word we throw around all the time, a word that can feel like it defines our whole lives, smart. But what does it actually truly mean to be intelligent? So let me ask you straight up, are you intelligent? You probably have an answer right on the tip of your tongue, a quick yes or no. Just hang on to that thought for a second. Because, believe it or not, that simple question kicks off a massive, complicated debate that's been raging for decades. The whole idea of intelligence being this simple on or off switch, you're either smart or you're not, is a surprisingly old school way of looking at things. Okay, so if it's not a simple yes or no, then what is it? What are we even talking about when we use the word intelligence? And here's the kicker. There's no single agreed upon answer. Nope. Experts have been battling over the definition for more than 100 years. It's way messier than we think. And this is where that one-size-fits-all idea of smart just completely falls apart. Back in the day, a psychologist named Gardner basically blew the doors off this whole thing. He argued that there isn't just one kind of intelligence, but at least 7 different kinds. You could be a whiz with words, or a math genius, or have incredible people skills, what we'd now call emotional intelligence. And this gets to a really key point. While figuring out a definition for intelligence is super complicated, for a long time, society has used one very specific, very simple tool to measure it. And you know what I'm talking about? The Intelligence Quotient, the IQ test. For decades, this has been the world's go-to answer for the question, how smart are you? It takes just a few abilities, math, words, spatial reasoning, and crushes them all down into one single number, with 100 being the average. And don't think for a second this is just some abstract academic debate. Oh no, these tests have had huge, life-changing consequences. For years in the UK, a single test you took when you were 11 could decide your entire educational future. And even now, think about tests like the SATs in the US, there's still these massive gatekeepers, literally sorting people onto different tracks in life. But here's the big selling point. The reason these tests became so powerful. The claim wasn't just that they measured what you'd learned. The idea was that they were measuring your natural, inborn intelligence, the raw potential you were born with, totally separate from your background or your schooling.
But is that even possible? I mean, really, can a test that's made by people ever be completely free of human culture? And that one question right there is where the whole idea of a purely objective intelligence test starts to unravel.
This is pretty much the core of the whole fight. In one corner, you've got the claim, IQ tests measure your pure, innate ability. And in the other corner, you have the critique firing back. No way. What they're really measuring is cultural learning, everything you've picked up from the world around you. And honestly, the evidence for that cultural learning argument is pretty compelling. A researcher named Kaplan showed that a ton of things can affect your score that have nothing to do with raw brain power. We're talking about your education, how much you read, your health. Heck, even just being good at taking tests can boost your score. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that if you get coached for the test, you've got a massive leg up. And think about cultural familiarity. If a question assumes some common knowledge that just isn't common in your world, you're already at a disadvantage. It's not a level playing field. So all of this leads to an even bigger, more fundamental question. If our backgrounds and experiences can sway the results so much, what in the world are these tests actually measuring anyway? Well, according to one researcher, James Flynn, they're measuring a surprisingly tiny slice of what it means to be human. Those linguistic and logical skills on the test, they might only be a small fraction of the whole picture. What about the other 70% of our abilities, like creativity or emotional wisdom or physical grace? The test just ignores all that. So you gotta ask, why these specific skills? Why focus on logic and language and not, say, musical genius or social savvy? This is where the critique gets even deeper. The sociological argument is that these tests don't measure some universal intelligence at all. They measure the abilities that the most powerful groups in society happen to value the most. It's a process that kind of works in 2 steps. First, the groups in power get to define what smart looks like. And surprise, surprise, it often looks a lot like them. Then, that definition is treated like an objective scientific fact, which can be used to justify why things are the way they are, making it seem like some people are on top simply because they're naturally smarter and deserve to be. So, if you look at it from that angle, the whole idea of a single fixed intelligence that you can measure isn't just a scientific concept.
it starts to look like a really powerful tool for social control, a way to make the existing social order seem natural and inevitable, instead of something we've built. So what's the big takeaway here? At the end of the day, that whole notion that intelligence is one stable thing you're born with, something we can just slap a number on and rank everybody, that idea is standing on some really, really shaky ground.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. If there's not just one kind of intelligence, and if our tests are all tangled up in culture and power, then who gets to decide what smart really means? And maybe more importantly, why do we let them?